Boys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing Complete Beginner's Guide Part 2. It's been a little bit since we did Part 1, but in the first part we talked about energy, crystals, and crystal income. Today I want to talk just about shipments. There's a lot of different shipments in Galaxy of Heroes, and there's a lot of different ways you can spend your different currencies, so we're just going to walk through that. We're going to talk about the best ways to spend it, and I'm not going to go in depth as far as the exact math of what to spend and what not to spend. I'm going to more walk you through how I spend it and what's more realistic, I think, for most players. Now, the reality is that if you want to get super min-maxy, there are specific gear pieces that you should buy in specific shipments, and I'm not going to get into those exact specifics. I'm going to tell you some good places to spend your currency and some bad places to spend your currency. So let's just hop right into shipments and talk about. I'm going to go through these in the order that you should get exposed to them in the game. And so we're going to start off with just the featured shipments. Now, the featured shipments and the weekly shipments are ones that I think you get access to right off the bat. And in this featured shipments, for most free-to-play players, you're really only going to be buying these 4 things with credits. This is just gear pieces that pop up from time to time. The reason I would buy these is because they are so cheap. They get you gear that you might use in the future or you might use for scraps later. But it also just gets you the achievement for making a purchase. I buy these every time I see them. It's kind of a force of habit for me because the amount of credits they're worth is like next to nothing. So you can buy them, you can not buy them. If you don't buy them, the gear, you probably won't miss out on a lot. But also by spending the credits on them, you're really not losing out on much. So other than that, you have a bunch of character shards in here that you can buy for crystals, some mod pieces, some gear, all that good stuff. I wouldn't really recommend spending your crystals in here unless you're more of a dolphin or whale player that needs crystals or needs certain characters that you're trying to unlock. You could certainly spend your crystals to unlock those, but not where I would recommend for most free-to-play players. In the weekly shipments, the big thing I want to highlight here is the Omega abilities. You are going to be short on these all the time. If you're a Lightspeed bundle purchaser, you're definitely going to be short on these. If you're a free-to-play player, you're going to be short on these. These are worth buying every single time. You buy them for Mark 1 raid currency, which you should have an abundance of if you're doing any of the newer raids. I would buy this every time it shows up. I'm buying this every time it shows up in my free-to-play, every time it shows up in my main account. Buy, 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 buy. Omicrons. I don't care how desperate you are for Omicrons. It is not worth get 3, especially not this much get 3 for Omicrons. Unless you're in the way late game, I do not think this is worth it. The gear pieces here, they're technically not the best value. It would be better value to spend your ally points actually opening character packs in order to bronziums, in order to get shard trap currency. However, if you don't have hot utils that's going to open it for you automatically, and you haven't set up a script in BlueStacks to open it for you, and if you don't know what either of those things are, you can spend these on this. It's not maybe the greatest spend, but you can certainly do it. If you're really desperate for Kybertex, I don't think this is the worst way to spend your Mark II, but it's not the best value ever. So only if you're really desperate for Kybertex would I recommend doing this. Most of the time, I would say don't go for it. The character shards that pop up here, if you actually need the character, I would say it's worth spending. If you're just spending to get shard shop currency, I would say it's not worth spending. The rest of this is almost not worth spending unless you, it's almost definitely not worth spending unless you are, again, a dolphin or whale kind of player who has a budget to spend crystals on stuff, on gear and on character shards. For most players, I'm going to say just avoid all of this in the weekly shipments. Okay, so that goes through the featured and the weekly shipments. Let's hop into Cantina shipments. Cantina battle shipments, these are where you get a bunch of different characters that you're going to need when you start off the game. For free-to-play players, just farm the characters you need. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it in this shop, I would say. If you're going for SLKR, get your first order up. If you're going for Ray, get Poe. I would say pretty much every character in here is useful in some way or another. So I would recommend farming all of them at some point. Also, what will happen is if you get all of them up to 7 stars, as you start to open bronziums and as you start to get character shards from Galactic War and other events and things, you'll just automatically convert those to shard shop currency, which is great. But if you're a free-to-play player, even if you're not, if you're just kind of a low spender or starting off the game, farm up the characters you need from here, and then use this just as ways to get shard shop currency. So I think I got a little bit of Cantina energy I can spend. I am farming signal data right now, so let's get some of that. what I always buy in here is going to be Cassian's U-Wing. The reason I'm going to buy Cassian's U-Wing over any other character in here is because ships are worth more in the shard shop than characters are. And this gives you 5, basically 4 character shards is equivalent, or 4 ship shards is better than 10 character shards, and this gives you 5. So it's really the best place to get shard shop currency. Since I have finished everything else in here, all the characters I need in here, I am just going to farm Cassian's U-Wing every time. Ability materials, Mark 1 and 2, not worth buying in here. Enhancement droids, not worth buying in here. Shipbuilding materials, not worth buying in here. Don't spend it on these things. It's just, there's so much better places to get all 4 of those, and eventually you'll see I have 28 million, 1,400, 10,000, and 9,000. You're not going to be bottlenecked by that at some point. So I would not spend it on those. Cassian's U-Wing is the best way to farm shard shop currency with this, and then just get the characters you need. There's, again, just get what you need for your farming plan. And we'll talk more about building a farming plan, what that looks like, in a future episode. Guild activity store. There's 3 or 4 different currencies in here, and you're going to spend them all slightly differently. So for the guild tokens, these are what you get for participating in your daily activities. You can buy characters with them, certainly, if you need certain characters. Not a bad spend on those. You can also buy gear with them. I kind of need some more of these. I've been hoarding these up a little bit. I keep running out of these green gears, so I'm personally buying these at the moment. But any gear in here you need, don't feel too bad about spending your guild tokens on it. Nothing wrong with that. If you need a character from it, nothing wrong with spending it on that. Not really a wrong way to spend this one, honestly. Mark 3 raid tokens. Kind of similar, that there's not really a wrong way to spend it. However, I would say that your arrow magnifiers, your impulse detectors, your grid of keypads, those are really what you want to be spending your Mark 3 raid currency on. You could technically spend it on Electrum conductors or Rhodium heat sinks or Zimital cards. I feel like Zimital cards and Electrum conductors, those are probably fine to spend on. Rhodium heat sinks, I would not. Oh, that's Mark 2, so never mind. Really, the Mark 3, whatever relic mats you need, whatever you're short on scraps, you can spend that on it. Let's talk about Zetas here. This is objectively a bad value. However, if you are extremely desperate for Zetas, and you don't have characters that you currently need to R8 or R9, and you're good on Zimital cards, good on Electrum conductors, I would not say this is the worst value ever. It's not the best spend. However, if you're a Lightspeed bundle purchaser, you're probably extremely short on Zetas, just like I am. I have been buying Zetas here, I'll be honest, because getting characters to higher relic levels is not going to help my roster right now. Getting more Zetas on my roster is going to help my roster tremendously. So this is really a where you're at situation. Again, I don't think it's the best value for most players. However, if you're a Lightspeed bundle purchaser, especially if you've bought every single Lightspeed bundle like me, this is, I think, worth it. And I think some people are going to disagree with me, but that's okay. Let's talk about Mark 2 raid currency. Mark 2 raid currency, I think your priority on this one needs to be the characters that you need. Hermit Yoda, Wampa, Leia, Gas, IPD, and Malik. After that, it's just going all towards Gear 12 pieces. I would not spend it on bronzing wire, chromium transistors, rhodium heat sinks, or carbonite circuit boards. There's better ways to farm all of those. Just farm your Gear 12 mats here. I would 100% only spend it on that after you get the characters that you need. Currently, I am using it to finish up my gas farm, and from there, I will go back to spending it on the Mark 12, the Gear 12 pieces that I need. Now let's talk about Mark 1 raid currency. This is what you're going to get the most of and has the most options to spend it on. And again, similar to the guild tokens, I don't think there's a really wrong way to spend this. If you need characters from here, absolutely spend it. It is the cheapest way to get a character. It is the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way to get a character in the game. So if they can be farmed here, spend the Mark 1 raid currency. Easiest way to get characters. Some characters are locked in here. The only way to get them is in here. Han Solo, General Kenobi, and Darth Treya are examples of that. So farm those characters. Then you can farm gear with them. You don't have to finish your character farms and then get the gear. You can kind of do both intermittently because you're going to get so much of this stuff. I have just kind of been going through recently, and any of the ones I don't have a few hundred of, I've been just purchasing because I really don't have a great use for it. I can get any character to gear 12 really whenever I want. So I've just kind of been stockpiling some different gear that I could run out of at some point. But there's really any gear you need in here, just buy it. Don't feel too bad about it. There's not really a great way to min-max the Mark 1 raid currency because you're going to get so much of it. These credits and shipbuilding materials, if you need them, absolutely worth spending here. Easiest way to get credits to the game is right here. Every time you do a raid, especially as a free-to-play player, I would recommend spending at least 625 to get 1,000,000 credits. It'll help your credit crunch tremendously. Just keep in mind, I noticed this on my free-to-play. If you are constantly buying credits here, you'll actually run out of trading droids at a certain point. So if you're out of trading droids, there's not really a point for you buying credits, so continue to buy your gear or your characters. Next, we're going to talk about Squad Arena. Squad Arena, again, characters are your number one priority in here. You can certainly spend some on these gear pieces down here, although not very useful gear pieces show up, in my opinion, most of the time. So certainly farm the characters that you need in here. Make it work for what you need. Then after that, I would hoard up prestige. If you are not sure what to spend it on, just get some more prestige. You need... I had to look it up because I wasn't sure. You need 1950 prestige in order to max out a capital ship. So if you're a late game player, I would recommend having 1950 prestige on hand at all times, because whenever the new capital ship comes out, you're going to want to be able to max it out right away. If you're a mid to early game player, you're going to need 1950 for every single capital ship, which means in the early game, you're going to want to eventually get 2 ships up, so you need about 4,000. Eventually, you'll get your negotiator malevolence, so you'll need another 4,000, and then eventually you'll get to your GL ships, so you'll need another 2,000 per one of those, 1950 per one of those. So prestige, prestige, prestige. Once you're done with your characters, prestige, prestige, prestige. Very much worth it. Credits, not particularly worth buying in here. Again, I would just buy them from the Guild Activity Store. Let's talk about Galactic War. Galactic War is going to be the easiest way for you to get shard shop currency, honestly. You're going to get the characters and the ships that you need from here. I would prioritize ships first, then get the characters that you need. Although, when you unlock Galactic War, you won't have access to the ships that are up here, so get the characters you need, get the ships you need, and then, again, like I mentioned with the Cantina battles, ships are worth more in the shard shop, so convert your ship currency into shard shop currency, not characters. It's a small difference, but it's a way to min-max and make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck. Not really a rhyme or reason to this. Again, farm what you need for your farm plan, and we'll talk more about how to make one of those in probably the next episode. So, mods. We'll have an in-depth guide on mods at some point. I would say for early game players, even most mid-game players, stay away from this. It's not worth spending your credits on these mods unless they are really good. This 5-speed on a defense, since defense is defaulted here, it's probably not worth spending the currency here. Now, I have plenty of currency, so I could probably afford to spend this, but for most players, I would avoid this tab until you get to like the late mid-game or late game, where you can actually have some money to spend on some of these. For example, if this offense cross was actually an offense primary and had like a +5 speed, that'd be one I would probably pick up. But since the primary is not really one that I'm going to use on an offense set and the speed's only 3, I'm going to pass on it. So you can spend currency here, but it's not necessarily what I would recommend. Fleet Arena. In Fleet Arena, in the early game, you're going to buy the characters that you need in here, and then Zetas, Zetas, Zetas. When Omegas show up here, not worth it. Buy them in the featured shipments each week. Ability Materials Mark III, that is the worst value you can spend in here. Do not buy those. Zetas, characters, and ships that you need. Again, prioritize ships, and then Zetas. Zetas, Zetas, Zetas. You think you have enough Zetas? Buy more Zetas. That's all I got to say there. Guild Event Store. In the Guild Event Store, we're going to get 3 different types of currency. Mark III, Mark II, and Mark I. Let's start by talking about Mark III. Mark III should be used for Conquest characters that you're missing. Should not be used for Kiadi Mundi. He's not good enough to justify it. And it should be used for, not be used for Razor Crest. Razor Crest can pop up in Fleet Arena, right in this first slot, as well as Vader and Grievous down here. So I would always recommend buying those 3 from this store and not spending your Mark III on Razor Crest. Also, in here you have Mark II. Mark II currency can be spent on Malevolence and Negotiator. as well as some gear pieces. For free-to-play players, max out Negotiator and Malevolence in the opposite order of what I just said. Max out Malevolence, then max out Negotiator for most players. Some farms, you could argue Negotiator is better first. But don't spend your Mark II on anything until you've maxed out both of those ships. Again, don't spend your Mark II on anything until you've maxed out both of these ships for free-to-play players. For Lightspeed Bundle players or for just Dolphins or people that are further in the game, you can spend your Mark III on gear as well as your Mark II on gear if you have the characters you need from this slot right here. So Maul, Cat, Boba Fett, Scion, Django, and I think there's one more that pops up here. I think they might add more here eventually. Maybe it's just Razor Crest. After you have the characters you need here, you can spend it on the gear down here, like Kairos and stuff. But for most players, you're going to be farming your Conquest characters from here. It's going to be a real slow grind, but it'll help supplement your Proving Grounds grind. Then gear with your Mark II after you finish Negotiator and Malevolence. IPD is listed here. I would not farm him here. If you need him, go farm him in the guild activity store where you can spend Mark II raid currency, not Mark II guild event tokens. Your Mark I guild event tokens can be spent on gear as well as shards for Wampa, Hermit Yoda, Malak, and General Skywalker. For most players, I would recommend farming Hermit Yoda and Wampa here, especially early games, that way you can get them faster. However, they also can be bought with Mark II raid currency, and if you're doing the Speeder Bike raid or the Naboo raid that's going to come out soon, you won't need to spend this in order to get them. You could just spend your Mark II, but these characters are very impactful, so especially Wampa, so I would recommend spending this to get them up and going as fast as possible. After you finish your character farms, Malak and Gas will only unlock in here after you've completed their events. So you can hoard this Mark I. I think it's about 60,000 in order to take them from 5 to 7 stars. So you can do that in order to allow yourself to take them up in stars right away. However, with the addition of them being farmable with Mark II raid currency, I kind of feel like that is equally as good, if not a better place to farm them than this shop. But for me, I'm farming Gas with both my Mark II raid currency and my Get One, so that way I can get him up as soon as possible. After you finish the characters in here that you need, I would recommend farming these gear pieces. There are characters down here, however, these characters and ships can all be farmed in other locations, so I would not recommend spending this currency. It is kind of valuable and can be used for some pretty good gear, so wouldn't recommend spending it on these characters. However, these characters up top, you can certainly spend it on, minus IPD. The Grand Arena Store, this currency goes to Kyrotex. It does not go to anything else. It goes to Kyrotex. I know some people are going to say, well, what if I need another gear piece? I would highly encourage you to spend it on Kyrotex. Kyrotex are the hardest gear to come by in the game. This is one of the only shipments that you can buy them in the game, so I would just recommend spend it on Kyrotex, spend it on Kyrotex, spend it on Kyrotex. Shard Shop. In the Shard Shop, you can spend it on any gear that you really need. There are a few gear pieces that I would keep an eye out for, specifically gear 12 pieces like med packs. These fusion furnaces can be nice to pick up here. These hypo syringes can be nice to pick up here. Even these security scanner salvages can be nice to pick up here. But med packs is the big one. I feel like it usually shows up in this slot right here. But so I pick that up pretty much every time I see it because so many characters need those med packs. But really, just farm what you need in here. There's not, I won't say there is a wrong way to spend it, such as spending on Grievous or spending on mod slicing mats. You really don't need to be spending it on those. Really just gear in here. Whatever gear you need at the time, I don't think you should feel too bad about spending it in here. Conquest currency should really be saved for characters. You really shouldn't be spending it on things other than characters. And so whether it's with the Wandering Scavenger while you're actually going through Conquest, or whether it's in this shop to get characters that you missed, really should only be spending it on those. There are gear that pop up in here from time to time, but I would not recommend spending it on these because you can get this gear in other places, and you're missing out on Conquest characters that cannot be farmed anywhere other than here and in Proving Grounds. The datacron store. Datacrons are an underrated way for mid-game players to separate themselves from the competition. So, if you are a mid-game player I define mid-game as past 4 million GP, so you're in hard Conquest, but not quite to the point where you're in the late game of all the GLs and multiple teams and all that. I would highly recommend using this store. Use your shard shop currency, use your ally points, get what you need in here, and level up some datacrons. You really will make a difference in your roster by having some datacrons that do well. I actually happened to get the Sidious datacron, and it helped me jump quite a few leagues in Grand Arena by relicking him and then using that datacron over the last few months. So, datacron's underrated way to separate yourself as a mid-game player. If you're an early game player, completely ignore this. None of this is going to be helpful for you. This datacron section. And legend tokens. Legend tokens, again, I think the optimal use for them is to buy character shards from Conquest that you're missing. But if you have all of the Conquest characters, then Kyrotex is probably what you're going to be spending these on. If you don't have the Conquest characters, I would say farm what you're missing. I know you barely get any, and it's going to take forever to farm a character from this. But you're not going to get a character from Conquest that you missed unless you're farming it with the legend tokens, or if you're farming it from Proving Grounds and refreshing that. So I don't think it's by any means the only way you can spend it by spending on Conquest characters, but it was what I would recommend for most people. Hopefully, that takes you through all of the shipments. I want to talk really briefly about the store as well. In the store, you have free bronziums. These are worth it to open, especially if you have hot utilities that will allow you to open all of them at once. And also, if you're on the PC client, you do get the free daily. This is in the web store if you're not on the PC client. So recommend opening this every day. As far as everything else in the store, if it's not a Lightspeed bundle, it's really not worth it for most people, is what I would say. If you are a bigger spender in the game and are wanting to spend more, then this Kyrotex Salvage bundle is the best spend you can make in the game. If you're spending like a monthly budget or a weekly budget or something, you should buy this every single week. A lot of these character packs, especially the ones that you're going to spend crystals on, are just not worth it. I would not recommend spending your crystals in here. The best way to spend your crystals, like we talked about last time, is on those energy refreshes. So, again, resources, not worth spending. Buying crystals. If you're going to spend money, it's probably one of the better ways to spend it. It's just upping your crystals. But I have a hard time recommending that when you could just buy Lightspeed bundles when they show up and not really buy anything else. So, hopefully that gives you a general overview of all of the shipments in the game, how to spend those currencies. I'm going to shut up now because I talked a lot. If this video was helpful for you at all, leave a like, subscribe for the rest of the series on the Complete Beginner's Guide. I appreciate you all. Take care and peace.